Have you ever tried turning a container ship around? It's about as hard as it looks. Forget checking your rearview mirrors, you need a guy in every corner to make sure you don't hit anything. This is when a merchant marine crew can be at their most stressed. You have to pull in lines without getting hurt and without sending the ship flying into the harbor. At sea, the captain can cruise on autopilot, leaving port, he can't. And there are sailboats all around who really don't want to get smushed. This activity, this stress level, this view of Portland are images I'll never forget. Why? Because this was the beginning of an 8-day sea-bound adventure to a place so alien, even the sheep that live there can't believe it exists. Before we climb aboard and set sail for Iceland, we need to first load our vessel up with something. In our case, that something is wild blueberry jam. To get some, we're going to a sprawling complex of cottages 45 minutes south of Portland. This is the headquarters for specialty food maker Stonewall Kitchen in York, Maine. Once upon a time in 1991, two guys started selling jam at a farmer's market. They eventually built a big specialty food company, called it Stonewall Kitchen, and sold it for millions of dollars when they decided to retire. Today, the company is headquartered in this complex, complete with a cafe, gift shop, and free samples. It also houses a production facility for many Stonewall products.
I wish we could bring to you how good it smells in here. I think this is as close as you can get to being inside of a blueberry pie while it's being cooked.
I'm here to find out what happens to Maine wild blueberries when they show up at this loading dock. To answer that question, I'm enlisting someone who has intimate knowledge of everything Stonewall Kitchen. Most CEOs, I imagine, don't have a giant bottle of apple cider vinegar on their desk, but you do.
I do. We're constantly trying new products here at Stonewall Kitchen. One of the sort of hot new products in the market is apple cider vinegar.
CEO is a boring title, which is why I'm calling John Steiker the Chief Executive Fearless Leader of Stonewall Kitchen. He's a Maine guy from up the road in Falmouth, and it's his job to ensure a business built on jam and supported by Ghost Pepper hot sauce runs smoothly.
My folks still live in Yarmouth. Moved away for a long time, but then came back 4 years ago to join Stonewall Kitchen as John and Jim, the original founders, were looking to step aside and spend less time on the business. It was a great opportunity for me to come in.
Give me a sense of your thoughts on Maine wild blueberries and blueberry jam in general.
So Maine wild blueberries for Stonewall Kitchen are really part of our most iconic product, and we really extend them into a number of other products that are also iconic for us. But our best-selling product for the last 25 years has been our wild Maine blueberry jam.
Do you eat them? Do you like them?
Every day. I had a English muffin with chunky peanut butter and wild Maine blueberry jam for breakfast this morning.
There you go.
Pretty consistent.
Hidden at the center of Stonewall's corporate offices, dressed up in almost historic New England decor, we find the assembly line for the wild blueberry jam we'll be following to Iceland. You can see just about the whole process from beginning to end through the glass.
All right.
But Stonewall's staff was nice enough to let us get a little closer for a few minutes. What are we going to see here?
We will have already slacked out the blueberries, meaning we'll have taken the frozen blueberries and started to let them thaw closer to room temperature, which makes them easier to produce. They'll go from there up to kettles in the kitchen, and there we'll combine them with just 4 other ingredients for our wild Maine blueberry jam. In those kettles, we will stir them and heat them much like you would if you were making it at home in a really large KitchenAid mixer. And then we'll pump them down through stainless steel tubes to the production floor. It'll sit in a hot holding tank waiting to fill jars, which will then run through an 8-head filler, and so you'll watch these jars move forward, our iconic square jars. I find the filler mesmerizing. So 8-head filler, 8 jars at a time will move under, stop, they'll clink together, you'll hear a loud clinking noise as the glass clatters against itself, and then on cue, product will pour into them, fill up to the exact same level every time, and off it will go. And so in the same way that I can look at a fireplace for a long period of time and just be fascinated by it, I can watch our filler for a long period of time. Oddly satisfying, exactly.
From the filler, the jars of molten blueberry goo scurry along to a capping machine and a pasteurizer cooler so they can be handled safely. That's where they emerge like little people rushing out of a Broadway theater after a show.
So we fill the jar at about 185 degrees, which is too hot to handle, obviously. And in the pasteurizer cooler, we'll cool it down over about a 20-minute period to about 110 degrees, which can be handled. In that process, we'll also pasteurize the product and create a vacuum which will pull down on the cap, and that way when you open a jar and you hear that pop,
That's the pop.
you're releasing a vacuum that's been created in that cooler. From there, it will come around to a fairly unique labeler that we have for our square jars. It's really important that we put the label on the right 3 panels of the square and not on the fourth panel. And then from there, we'll actually hand pack it into boxes, which is our last quality control step, where someone on the production floor will touch every jar, take a look at it, make sure the label's on straight, the product's filled the way we want, the inkjet printed. We have a lot of automated checks for those as well, but we like having a real person look at them before they go into the box. From the box, they go back to our warehouse here in York, Maine, and then that day or the next day, they'll go off to Dover, New Hampshire, which is our warehouse from which they'll then go to all of our customers, including ultimately to our distributor in Iceland.
Portland's International Marine Terminal is busier than ever. Drive by the cement heath and you'll see towering stacks of containers. Some are empty, some are full, and all of them are going somewhere, even when they're standing still. Since 2013, this port has been the U.S. headquarters for Icelandic shipping company Eimskip. Vessels are showing up here every week now to be loaded with containers and sent back to Europe, over and over and over again. Boats don't magically appear at the dock. They have to make a careful journey through a busy working harbor without running over people out for a Sunday cruise. I wanted to know how these big boats navigate from open water to the dock, and found the Mainers who do just that.
Very few people have any clue what we do. And I don't mean that as a negative thing. There's very few people, if I walk into Main Hardware and say, what's your account that you have with us? I say Portland Pilots. And they hear Portland Pirates, and they say, oh, what position do you play? I don't recognize it. I say, no, we're pilots. And they say, oh, what kind of airplane do you fly? And no, we're sea pilots.
As if he didn't make it clear enough, Captain Mark Klopp does not fly a jet. He's the owner of Portland Pilots, a small company that sends experts on local navigation onto various big boats coming into Portland Harbor. On this particular day, we went out into open water to meet the ship Kirk, myself, and some wild blueberry jam would be on for the 8-day trip to Iceland.
My job is to make sure this vessel gets to that dock safely, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
In 2 pilot boarding areas. We have the Papa Booey offshore. That's 12 miles from our dock. Typically, that's where we meet 80% of our ship traffic, and especially what we call deep draft ships. The crude oil tankers that we used to bring in here on a regular basis to the Portland Pipeline Corporation. A lot of those drew 52 feet of water. We would meet those offshore at the Papa Booey. The smaller vessels, an example would be the Eimskip ships and the Irving tankers that go above the bridge to the Buckeye and Sidco dock that bring all the gasolines and diesel oils. These ships make a beeline for St. John, Canada, to the Irving refinery. They come in here around 32 to 35 feet of draft, and they come into what we call the Eastern Approach Witch Rock pilot boarding area. It's from our dock, it's 8 miles, okay? And you can see the Eimskip ship right there on the horizon. We have a position on the chart, okay, that we've also given to the ships arriving at the Eastern Approach pilot station as a rendezvous point. So we pretty much picked this, we're in the same spot every time consistently. And we need them in this area offshore here because a lot of times we'll need to swing the ship off their heading they're on to make a lee for the sea conditions. So we need to have them offshore, about 3 miles east of Ram Island here, so that they can turn their vessel in plenty of sea room to make a sufficient lee for us to climb aboard.
What have you seen?
Do you really want to put this on the news? We've seen some of the worst weather during the winter months, during our nor'easter storms. We've physically been out here in some of the worst weather ever recorded here on the East Coast. Not necessarily boarding ships, but attempting to. And yet we see the nicest weather, your summer months, especially this time of year, as we start to go into fall, with the cruise ships arriving pre-dawn hours. You get to see the moon setting, you get to see the sunrise, and you see Mother Nature at its finest. Not just with the foliage changing, but with the sea life out here, the seals, the whales, we see it all.
Luckily, the sea felt like being kind to us as we buzzed past the landmark lighthouses and forts dotting the entrance to Portland Harbor. Let's face it, being the gawker who crashes the cruise is fun. Being the person with responsibilities, especially when they become routine, is less of a thrill.
I think any job you do for a long time, you get a little tired of it after a while. But I like the uniqueness of it. Not that many people get to do this. Some days are very busy. You get up at 3 in the morning. You might get a break during the day, but sometimes you're not off the water till 8, 9 o'clock at night, so that's a pretty long day.
Hydrotherapy, summertime 116.
Other days, you go out for a boat ride. It's nice. You're only out there for 3 or 4 hours, and you're done for the day. And that part is very enjoyable. I like the all seasons, Sometimes I like the winter better because there's less traffic out here. I feel fortunate to be able to work close to home. I grew up in Portland, so I haven't gone that far. As far as working, I worked in Alaska fishing. I worked all over Gulf of Maine fishing, so to be working on the pilot boat here for the last almost 20 years is pretty nice. Some nights I'm not home that long, but I'm home every night. Whereas guys that have to ship out and be gone for months.
That word rings in your head, doesn't it? Months. Months. That's how long the sailors we were meeting had spent in that black dot you see over Captain Dan's shoulder. That dot got bigger and bigger and bigger and seemed to be moving faster and faster, though it was slowing down.
Container vessel F Ava, Portland pilots on 16.
Within minutes, we were pulling alongside the EF Ava, the 424-foot-long container ship Kirk and I would call home for 8 days. She looked smart, dressed in black and white paint that seemed in some ways like formal wear. Radars spinning, engine easing, the Ava started to glide into Casco Bay.
Roger, understood. Okay.
On the pilot boat, the calm was breaking. The safety gear goes on. The people designated to get on the ship and navigate from the bridge start to mentally and physically prepare to board. Within minutes, we're heading straight to the Ava's port side. And with a loud, scrappy bang, we're alongside the ship, now looming above us like a cliff. That's where Captain Mark and most of his partners left us, as they went up a little rope ladder, leaving Captain Dan and me behind.
And like today's a nice clear day, so it's should be pretty obvious what's going on, but the same scenario on a thicker fog day, you definitely need all your eyes on the bridge, observing and experience.
For the next half an hour, Captain Dan and I tailed the Ava as she maneuvers into the increasingly narrow harbor. Our final favor at the very end of the journey was a polite shove into the dock.
A little bit of weight against the side helps it stay close to the dock. No, it's not scary at all. I worked on boats for a long time, so before this I had commercial fish, so spent a lot of time on the water.
Within minutes of a ship's arrival, the shore team at Portland's Marine Terminal gets busy, loading and unloading. One by one, containers are sorted, lifted, removed, shoved, slid, and placed delicately in a highly organized process that can span entire days. But what's in these boxes, and who wants whatever's in them? What does all this activity mean for Maine's economy? The man with the answers to those questions is port facilitator David Arnold.
David, tell me about your first time coming down here.
That would have been back in 2009. This was still a snow impound facility for the city of Portland and had no regular container service. And most of what you see now in terms of the infrastructure and the containers wasn't here.
What's it like to come here today? Because you got all this activity going on in a spot that just used to be full of salt.
It's inspiring. It's really been amazing to watch basically something come from nothing. To grow a freight service and provide opportunities for Maine businesses where previously there was none. Now Maine businesses can gain an international market reach.
While technically not a port employee, David's hired to make sure various port functions happen as smoothly as possible. He quite literally walked us through what it takes to get the EF Ava ready to head back to Reykjavik.
What you're seeing right now is the discharge of the vessel. They are taking containers off the boat, putting them on trucks so that they can be staged in the yard, and then later on trucks will come in to pick up those containers and take them to their final destination.
How long does this go on for? Is it an all-day affair? Is it, we start and stop as needed? What's that like?
Typically this takes about 2 days, usually anywhere from 13 to 18 hours of operations to fully discharge all the containers that are coming here to Portland and load out all the containers that will be sailing on the vessel.
What's the coolest thing you've ever seen come out of one of these boxes?
We have had freight for movies come through here, so some pretty interesting vehicles for some very high budget films that were filmed internationally.
What about going out?
We've had some interesting machinery come through. We've had some grain alcohol come through, which isn't that interesting unless you're looking to punish yourself, but they do turn into some tasty beverages here in the state. So, and some seafood, lots of seafood that comes through and gets used at our restaurants and sold in our grocery stores.
Yeah. What do the Europeans buy and other people?
We move vehicles. We move some of Maine's products, Maine potatoes, Maine blueberries go out through here. We also move some domestic goods, home goods. Our warehouse consolidates freights for multiple types of freight for sale in Iceland. Iceland's an island. Everything that gets there comes by boat or by ship. So their version of Sam's Club and grocery stores needs to be stocked the same as ours. So you'll have stuff like cheese balls.
What do you tell other people about this place who have no idea what goes on here? Because as soon as we started looking at doing this, everyone was like, what the heck do they do there?
If you buy things in the state, chances are you've bought things that come through this port. Everything that you get from stores, from car dealerships, had to come from somewhere. And we're an important part in that logistics chain. So things come by rail, they come by road, and they come by boat. And we're part of making sure that people have access to goods here in the state and that businesses have access to markets abroad.
How on earth did you get involved in this, what I think is kind of a niche thing?
My brother looped me into this. I actually studied to be a therapist.
This is great therapy, right? Nice, cold looking containers, metallic scenery everywhere, right?
Sure, there are some big personalities on the docks. And we have a lot of stakeholders here in the port. So I have to say counseling skills come in handy, for sure, in the business. But really what it comes down to is my brother looped me into it while I was in college, and it just kind of grew from there. I'd say I definitely like it. It's very enjoyable. It's something different every day. And it's really cool to be part of something that has such an impact on our state and the region.
One of 3 boats about the size of the EF Ava now stop in Portland each week. The Maine International Trade Center says 17,500 containers passed through this port in 2017 with a value of $503 million. It takes about 24 to 36 hours to load and unload a cargo ship in Portland. Sooner or later, the work of the lifters, crane operators, and truck drivers is done. The cargo on the EF Ava is once again in the crew's hands.
Yeah, this It's very important, yeah. Life jacket for both persons here, yeah. If emergency, you will
Go up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it and go outside. Or main deck, yeah.
Yeah.
We have master release station. I show you position. No, mainly you must proceed to bridge, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for verbal order from captain, yeah.
Okay.
This public addresser system, yeah.
The cargo was in the crew's hands, and shortly after a day's worth of loading, so were we.
Yeah.
This is Chief Officer Dmitry Ivanovs. He's originally from Russia, and when he's not working, has a house and family in Latvia. But when he's on the EFAVA, he's the highest-ranking officer under the captain. The day of our departure, Dmitry was our orientation leader and showed us all the safety procedures we hoped we wouldn't need on the voyage to Iceland. Dmitry showed us everything we need to know to get off the EFAVA should it start sinking. For instance, how to get in the tender or lifeboat and launch it off the back.
When everybody inside, security bells, captain give order. We close the door. Let's go, guys. We start pumping and jump. Okay. Yeah? No, I hope it's not necessary. We'll be on this trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's master station. Yeah.
Okay.
During war drills or real abandon, everybody, our crew collected here. Yeah. Because we finish position marked 1, 2, 3 for our crew members. Yeah. For easy count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody take place, and captain or me, yeah, count person, 2, how much we have. Now we have 70% on board. Okay, everybody there? Yeah, let's go, guys, yeah? Okay. For each person, emergency suite. Maybe if need, if necessary, we will use this
stay
one.
warm.
Yeah, warm. But one more thing, this emergency suite must be used with safety life jacket, yeah?
Yeah.
It doesn't,
floats.
Yeah. It doesn't mean, don't forget, please, your life jacket and cabin, yeah? Life raft we have, yeah? Both sides. One starboard side, one port side. If not possible to drop down the lifeboat, we can use life raft, right? We hope it's not will be necessary, yeah? No, you must know it. Vessel will be listed, yeah? Very difficult to approach the life raft.
I'm pinching my lip partially because it's also sinking in. We're really going to Iceland.
So there's no oxygen. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
You take CO2 and you spray it with that, so it goes out.
You know, I think you was before some vessel, yeah? Not first time, not first time.
Nope, just science. I'm not that smart.
But it's science, you know.
Okay. Be careful, watch your step.
Up to the bow we went, learning about anchors.
Both. Port and starboard, we have two.
And after stepping carefully over the lines, we checked out the cargo office to look at the ballast system that keeps the ship upright while underway.
Also, ballast, tank. It's here, my tank, yeah.
Eventually, the safety check blended straight into a real get-to-know-the-boat orientation, with a stop in the galley where we'd have all our meals.
Offshore mess. Oh, there's two places for you, yeah? For you and for you. On kitchen we have a microwave. If you miss your time, get your deposit, put to microwave, yeah, and start.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easy.
It's that easy.
Our final initiation ritual took place up on the bridge, the so-called brain of the ship, where it's driven from.
Welcome.
This is where we got a radio and officially became part of Dmitry's seafaring family.
You can keep it in cabin and read what's going on around, yeah? For example, pilot on board or something like that, yeah? And, or you will be know what's going on. No, it's radio check. Dismiss.
Pilot number 2, Chief.
No. Negative, Captain. I present radio for our friends. Yeah, and give him one radio for no situation around the vessel.
You got them all excited?
Everybody want pilot on board? Keep it, yeah?
With that, we were ready to depart. We unpacked our motion sickness bands,
Position and enjoy your travel.
watched the crew let go of the lines,
Here's Dustin getting gorgeous shots.
took some last pictures of home, and with the harbor pilot on board, for real this time,
Container vessel EFAVA is underway from the International Marine Terminal.
fired up the bow thrusters, took one last look at Portland Head Light, and headed to the open Atlantic. You may be wondering what our cabin looked like, where we went to the bathroom, what we ate, and we'll talk about all of that in the next episode of Ship Me Out.